In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Project VIDA, an ambitious new project bringing San Antonio's Southside community together. Joining me are Thad Rutherford, the president of SouthStar, and Jessica Loudermilk, chief of staff to Texas A&M San Antonio's president, Dr. Hector Ochoa. Working side by side, they're serving as connectors and conveners, bringing partners together to create a place where education, housing, healthcare, and opportunity intersect. So Thad, Jessica, thank you all for joining.
Thank you for having us.
So Thad, let me start with you. Tell me about SouthStar before we get to Project VIDA.
Yeah, so SouthStar are a real estate development firm. For years, we'd love to come up with a better moniker, but we are developers. We think we're community builders or builders of community, and we've got a great team and really focus on placemaking and creating kind of mixed uses that can all kind of work together and live together and organically grow. So we love what we do, and we're excited to have great partners around us since our projects end up being so large in scale. We have a lot of stakeholders and excited to have partners such as Texas A&M and others.
So you're headquartered in New Braunfels?
We are, yes.
Okay, but you have projects in other states. I know Florida looks like
Sure.
a big state and some others on the East Coast.
Yeah, so much of what we do is opportunistic, finding the opportunities to kind of add the value as a development firm, a placemaking firm as we are. So we've been lucky enough to develop in North Carolina, Georgia, all over the state of Florida, and have been in Texas for, out of our 25 years as a company, I think 21 of those years we've been developing in Texas. We are now central Texas-based firm, so everything we're doing is in probably the Austin, San Antonio corridor and everything in between.
So describe Project VIDA. Is it a planned community? How would you reference it?
Yeah, so we usually call them planned communities.
Okay.
Some people call them MPCs or master planned communities. It's a 600-acre planned community, mixed use, so both residential, industrial, commercial, all kind of wrapped up in infrastructure and planning, and directly north, adjacent to Texas A&M San Antonio, off of 410 in the heart of Southside.
So, Jessica, tell me, how did Texas A&M San Antonio come into this partnership, this project?
Well, we've been eagerly awaiting neighbors. When I first got to A&M San Antonio 7 years ago, there was nothing but trees, scrub, wild hogs, some burros in that area. So it's nice to finally see rooftops.
Probably some javelinas.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So we're not formally connected to VIDA, but I will say they have SouthStar has involved A&M San Antonio meaningfully from day one. So our input was sought about features of the community like the green spaces. And they involved many of our employees in those conversations. And also we're in nearly constant conversation about what sort of future development on those 600 acres would benefit the university.
So, there's a concept in Houston called Houston Wilderness that was actually patterned after Chicago Wilderness, where the environmental community and the developer community got tired of fighting each other, and literally either over a cup of coffee or over a beer one day, they said, why can't we, figure this out? And it was basically connecting the neighborhoods to the bayous where you could take a hike and bike trail, maybe rent a bike, and then when you get to the bayou, then you rent a canoe, and that made the residential community more valuable because of the quality of life was built in. So that type of program is after the fact, and it seems like what you're doing is you're building those amenities in before the fact.
Yeah, it's a conscious strategy for us. There's a lot of things we kind of broaden, not just the maybe connected to the environment side of it. It's a little even broader. We wanted to create a organic community where people can live, work, learn, have health care, but kind of piece together the things that you see in other parts of the city that you don't normally see in the South Side. We kept asking ourselves, why is that not here? The investment, as Jessica said, for Texas A&M, growing their campus just north of us, we felt like we had to step up our game from a placemaking standpoint. So I think we're one of the first large-scale mixed-use communities that have privately funded public art just in our neighborhood. And so those things, along with our kind of connected trail system that actually has a trail that goes somewhere, and was consulted on with some of the professors and students at A&M to create a better trail system named after Senator Frank Madla, who also helped A&M become a campus.
He was a big visionary and driver
yeah.
behind the development of the campus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So our greenway is called the Madla Greenway. And his son and family came to our opening, and we have our first phase, and we're actually designing our second phase now that kind of interconnects all the different neighborhoods within the overall neighborhood back to Texas A&M and to the future University Healthcare campus, which is under construction. So for us, it's a global concept of trying to connect all of these uses so people see that where they live or where they work, they can be proud of. That doesn't have to be on one side of town, that these type of elevated communities and thoughtful places can be anywhere in San Antonio. So, I try to not say it's a Southside project, because to me it's a project for San Antonio. And I feel what we've seen as a partnership with Texas A&M, that's how Texas A&M feels. It's a university for the entire San Antonio region and beyond. And, we love that about VIDA. The idea of VIDA, the name was rebirth. This was a project on the books for many, many years, as Jessica said.
Well, I go back to Mayor Ed Garza, who
City
used
South.
to talk a lot about City South and, connecting residential to amenities and quality of life. Jessica, universities are drivers of many things, not just economic drivers by graduating, a new generation of thinkers and creators and builders and workers, but also just as idea factories. And so when this project first came up, how did you take that idea and decide we want to be a part of this?
Well, beyond our initial excitement that one day we would have somewhere new to eat that we didn't have to drive 20 minutes to get to, I think it has always been exciting because both SouthStar, or the VIDA community in particular, and A&M San Antonio are uniquely positioned to be responsive. We are both so relatively young in our development that really anything that we think of that's possible and mutually beneficial, we have the opportunity to do it together. And we've done that, as Thad mentioned, public art project that grew out of some conversations that we had between the university and SouthStar. Likewise, our involvement in the development of green spaces in the community. But for us, we had for quite a long time been really hamstrung in our growth because of a lack of rooftops, lack of individual rooftops and multifamily. Most of the housing in the area had been income limited housing. Students were not eligible for that housing. So we were not able to attract students from out of area because we simply had nowhere to put them. So that's opened new doors for us to have the VIDA community coming along so quickly and developing in partnership so that we are meeting each other's needs as we go.
I mean, to some extent, I think UTSA 30 years ago was considered a commuter school because they didn't have the rooftops, and now they do. Tell me about, you said you didn't want to call this a Southside project. The Southside is the darling of the city right now.
It is.
It's gone from lack of economic opportunity and economic growth, where everything was sort of on the north side. A lot of the north side engineering firms and construction firms, they're all working on the south side right now. So tell me, we don't operate in a vacuum. We're part of a bigger ecosystem. So how does Project VIDA fit into everything else that's happening on the south side right now?
Well, first and foremost, we believe in housing as an ecosystem. Jessica talked about what rooftops can do to a university. The idea of housing from a developer perspective is there's a lack of supply. And with a lack of supply, kind of throws out the dynamics, the economics of pricing all out of whack. So for us, we believe more housing solves a lot of issues. That we also believe there needs to be kind of a gamut of pricing, both for sale and for rent, for kind of communities to kind of grow organically and be healthy, long-term, sustainable. We knew that we couldn't just go build a rooftop or one or two types of rooftops in VIDA. We've been lucky enough to, there's 3 multifamily projects, one of which on the ground, 2 of which coming forth, one of which was with the San Antonio Housing Trust. We also introduced the first townhomes this deep in the Southside. We're very excited about that. Brought brand new home builders that had never done business in the Southside. So, and that's when we say we didn't want it to be a Southside project. We wanted it to be a project that everybody could be proud of, and that if we kind of kept the essence and the culture of the Southside, which was always our plan. Also wanted to make people outside the area be proud of, and so the variety of housing is a real thing. We think that's economically the smart, sustainable way for the long term. You want to have a person be able to rent a studio for an affordable price, but you also want to give them a home that if they feel like they can build a large home and cost $500,000, $600,000. That was not, you were not able to find that. We have faculty that are interested in housing prices that the immediate area just couldn't produce. So for us, it was about all of it. That ecosystem was super important for us. We didn't want to build a neighborhood for one type of person or family. We wanted it to be a little more inclusive, and that we knew we needed the gamut. And knowing that healthcare was a huge deal, we kind of look at university. We also look at UHS's campus that they're building inside VIDA, adjacent to A&M. We knew those people working there were going to need kind of a gamut of housing. So that was we thought about that for a long time in the idea of this project, that it had to be a variety of housing. Couldn't just be talk. We had to walk the walk. And talking to the university for many years, what was needed, what type of housing. Student housing now, there's a lot of more creativity in creating housing for students, where people, 3 or 4 students could get together and rent a townhome together.
I don't want to go there because when I went to college, I lived in a shoebox dorm the size of this room, and there were 2 of us. And then what I saw my children got to live in, it's a whole other world.
Absolutely.
Yes, Jessica, I would imagine that recruiting has got to be hard on the faculty and employee side. When housing is in short supply. So I imagine this is a huge boon for the university.
It is, both now and in planning for our future growth. So, we've had the majority of our employees driving back home to the north side every day because, I think there weren't the housing options that they wanted in the area. There were some, I think, other drivers of that, schools, but primarily it was about not having the variety of housing options that they would have liked. And now that's changing with VIDA. So as Thad mentioned, we have faculty that live there. We have students that share residences there. But also our president is a resident in VIDA. So there's quite a variety of housing available. But for recruiting in terms of both employees and students, we were really challenged because of the lack of rooftops in the area.
So let's talk about the healthcare component because obviously when you're looking at a place to live, a lot of people look at not only the actual neighborhood and the house, but they're looking at the schools. What's the quality of the schools in that area? And what about is there a drugstore nearby? How far is the grocery store and other amenities like emergency and healthcare facilities? So tell me how did you start these conversations with University Hospital as you were planning?
We were lucky that the former CEO, George Hernandez, approached us. UHS was looking for a future campus. We had in a plan in VIDA a healthcare component. In fact, it was part of their original plan, which was called Verano at the time of Mayor
when
Ed
Ed Garza was mayor.
Hospital was part of it. So was a university. So some of these things have kind of evolved a little, become more realistic. I think that's kind of, people ask me, what's VIDA in really the Texas A&M Regional Center? Mm-hmm. What is it now compared to what this Verano idea was almost 15 years ago? And we've taken the things that are realistic and able to be executed upon by great partners, and that's really what we pushed forward. But yeah, UHS approached us about a campus. We said, of course, where do we sign? It was a lot more complicated than that. It took a long time to negotiate the idea of such a large 68 68 acre. I mean, it's 10% of our entire landmass.
Wow.
Is the UHS campus directly adjacent to A&M. So there's a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot of kind of coordination on where the transportation and other infrastructure would go. But we're just, every day I drive by it, it's just very proud to know that, A&M and VIDA and SouthStar, we were able to, as a group, partner and get the first full-fledged, trauma hospital center. It's going to have a helipad. I mean, it's going to be.
So it'll be a level 1 trauma facility?
I think. Well, I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
But it is. It's 160 plus beds.
It'll be a full-service hospital.
Full service, and very proud. The direction that UHS's board and the former CEO and the current CEO Ed Banos it's been amazing to see the progress on that hospital. We think that's going to be an absolute neighborhood game changer. Now I won't take Jessica's thunder, but they've already partnered and created some really strategic agreements that propel these universities even further with A&M and UHS. And again, I won't steal Jessica's thunder.
I'll go to her next.
But for us, that's what we want in community building, is build a neighborhood, not just housing, but these strategic partnerships that kind of interlock everybody for kind of the higher or common good for all of us, for these neighborhoods. They feed off each other. There's energy. The energy that we bring is things that have fed off of what we saw from A&M 6 years ago when we started this process, and we hope to feed energy back to them. Same with UHS's campus. We do a lot of work with South Texas Business Partnership, and we always talk about these kind of partnerships create this energy that then bring in more investment. And that's really what we're all looking for, is just more investment to come to this kind of side of town. As you said, there already is a lot. We want more. We think the potential for this area, the Southside, is we're only just tapping into it. So very excited about UHS, the clinic, which is named after VIDA. That'll be opened in the first half of 26, and then the hospital will be opened in the first half of 27. So very excited to see that.
So what does the UHS facility mean for the A&M San Antonio campus?
Well, it's really a great, it will even be a visual symbol of partnership. So we have been really deliberate at A&M San Antonio that our architecture and interior design reflect the culture and heritage of San Antonio. That was important for our first president, so that our students felt at home and could see themselves in the environment. Mm-hmm. And we are really fortunate that University Health, being in such close proximity to us, were willing to ensure fidelity to our architectural standards. So it will look very much like it's a part of campus. And we really appreciate that. I think it's a great visual symbol of our partnership, but certainly it opens doors to so many things for us. We would like to, and I think we will soon be able to do some things that expand A&M Health Science Center's footprint in San Antonio. But for us long term, it just opens the doors to internships, research partnerships, all kinds of possibilities. And these are certainly careers into which we want to slot our students. We have a really large number of students. Probably our largest major is in biology, and many of those students, because we don't have a specific pre-health major, many of them are intending to go into health-related fields. So we think it'll be perfect for them to have literally across the street a place to go and have, ultimately clinical opportunities, but certainly in the meantime, internship opportunities. And then for our faculty, too, to work with the professionals in the medical complex on research and other projects.
What is your total student body population right now?
Well, we don't quite have our current number yet. So each fall we have a census date at which we get our official number, and that was last week. So this number is not fully baked. But last year our fall enrollment was just over 8,022. We are down overall a little bit. We had our largest freshman class ever, our first time in college class, but we are slightly under 8,000 this year. I just don't have an official number yet.
And what percentage is male to female?
We are a little bit higher in terms of having a greater sized female student population. So we've historically been around 65-35, and it is not unusual at all for there to be more females than males in a student population, but that's a little bit higher percentage of females than you might see elsewhere.
And it seems like there's been a growing trend for I know, like for example, a lot of the percentage of female large animal vets has skyrocketed because a lot of the men realize for the same amount of education time, I can make more money as a medical doctor than I can as a large animal vet. And so they'll go, they'll go the small animal route. But point being that we've just seen a lot of changes in higher ed over the years. So tell me about, either one of you, talk to me about, Thad, you mentioned the South Texas Business Partnership. This is a chamber of commerce on the, they used to be known as the South Chamber, but when Rebecca Villagran came in, the board changed the name, and she's done a good job of reaching into South Texas, into Laredo, Corpus, the Rio Grande Valley. So tell me about how you're working with them as a partner as well.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be doing my job as an executive board member if I didn't pass it to my chair, which is Jessica. We both sit on the board, and Jessica's the chair, so I probably wouldn't be doing my job. I've been a member for many years, excited to be on the executive board. Rebecca Villagran is doing amazing things, but I have a great chair, so I'm going to let her speak.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, so 2025 chairwoman of the board for South Texas Business Partnership. I've been on the board for the entire 7 years that I've been here at A&M San Antonio. And I think, as you mentioned, it used to be called the South San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, and there has been a lot of evolution in the role of chambers of commerce. The things that they used to most critically do for businesses aren't necessarily the things that businesses need from them anymore. So I think our name change and our change of focus, our expansion of focus was in some ways a function of that, and it actually preceded Rebecca coming in as CEO. Under the leadership of our then chairwoman, Connie Gonzalez from Brooks, we undertook that change. And then, of course, Rebecca coming in as CEO has just brought it to life and brought it to fruition. But for us, we thought, it's really, we keep talking about ecosystems. It's really, I think, limiting and short-sighted to think of just San Antonio or just one part of San Antonio. And we're really the doorway to South Texas. So we wanted to be thinking and collaborating in mutually beneficial ways.
Well, I remember at the recent summit, South Texas Summit, that was held at, I guess, the Embassy Suites at Brooks. The mayor of Brownsville, John Cowan, was there speaking with other folks from other parts of South Texas. So it's good. We're all interwoven, and San Antonio is, for lack of a better phrase, I think the hub that all these spokes are connected to. Absolutely. And so it makes perfect sense to be weaving in. Yeah. If you look at the growth of McAllen, you look at what's happened in Brownsville with SpaceX. Yep. Laredo's the number one port in the United States. It used to be the number one inland port. Now it's the number one port of any size. And Corpus is going through a little bit of a metamorphosis. They just had a difficult vote that the city council turned down a desal plant. And now they need to figure out what happens next because they believe they may only have a year's worth of water left before they have to really focus on deep water usage conservation practices. But so how did the partnership come in as a partner for VIDA?
Well, like everything, I think we're all trying to see, from a networking perspective, see what's going on in our area, who's doing what, who's investing what. So our investment as organizations into SOTEX is so critical because we're kind of the generators of that energy. So small businesses are involved, larger stakeholders. So you have a really interesting mix in South Texas Business Partnership. You have these local mom and pop business owners that are trying to grow their business. And then you have Toyota, UHS, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And so, we love putting on programming, getting those groups together to try to better understand what's going on policy-wise from a leadership's perspective. Are we getting the views, the focus for this area? And, like Jessica said, our CEO, Rebecca Villagran, she's becoming the de facto kind of representative for some of these larger scale projects, like the mayor's South Texas Mayor Alliance. So Rebecca was brought in by our former mayor to kind of lead up some of those meetings. We have
the South Texas Alliance of Cities.
Yes, yeah. You said it much better than I did. And that's exciting to have our leader our group being represented by a former council person with leadership that is kind of connecting, like you just said, all of these growing cities south of us that all want to do business in San Antonio. So we're kind of that our South Texas Business Partnership. We're kind of that liaison to bringing those people and those investments and ideas up into San Antonio. That's exciting to me. We talk a lot about it. How can we continue to keep that involved? Don't let them be their own satellites, but kind of use our organization to tell them they've got a voice up here in San Antonio, and then back to council and city and everything that's going on there. So it's a constant investment. There are a lot of chambers doing a lot of different things, good things, but for us, it's really trying to gather those stakeholders and what's next. How can we work together? How can we leverage our resources? I think that's a big thing. You see that at VIDA. It's all about leveraging resources. We don't want to be just a neighborhood. I don't think A&M wants to be another satellite campus. I think they want to be the best campus in the A&M system. I think that's their goal. We feel the same way, and that type of partnership is always fraught with a lot of great ideas. And how do we take those ideas and then execute them? SoTex is right in the middle of all of those things.
Absolutely. We've been really, I think, a convener of a lot of critical conversations. I think the last year we focused a lot on infrastructure, and having that collective impact, having the voices together as opposed to individuals or individual entities trying to pursue a project or a priority. It just makes a big difference. So South Texas Business Partnership, or as we affectionately call it, SoTex, has convened conversations, played a really critical role in advancing the concept for the South Texas Parkway, which will certainly take a long time to bear fruit, but was some critical first steps were taken, and a lot of that effort was in many ways organized by South Texas Business Partnership. And right now we're working on convening major stakeholders on the south side. This is particular to San Antonio as opposed to the Parkway, to really look at collectively what we would like to advocate to see on the next bond package.
And there's always a lot of, I remember when Mayor Julian Castro asked me to chair a committee for, I think it was the 2012 bond package. He asked me if I had any shoulder pads because I was going to need them. I think we had 400 and some odd million in requests and only 67 million or so to be able to allocate. So it's there's always in this community greater need than resources.
Right. And with I think flood mitigation efforts are going to dominate a lot of the proposals for the bond. So
they will.
It will be even tougher, I think, to get things to rise to the top as priorities.
Especially after the tragedy in June, where we lost 13 people, I believe it was. So that I know that the city is working on that as we speak. Jessica, tell me about the school districts. Any university is an integral part of a community, and you're the magnet for that attracts students from high school, and they're looking for particular things. So tell me about the relationship with the school districts that you work with, and how they now see the big picture of what's happening with Project VIDA.
So we do a lot of work in the community, particularly with the ISDs. One thing that our president, Ochoa, says frequently is that he cares as much about the students who don't make it to us as the ones who do. So if they come to us, we certainly need to see them through, but we're really invested in helping to generate a college-going culture and support a college-going culture. We have worked most closely with the 7 South Bexar County ISDs that we refer to as the Aspire Network. So that group already was meeting independent of A&M San Antonio so that they could coordinate and advocate together for the things that they need to lift all boats for the ISDs. But with A&M San Antonio in the conversation, we've really thought about how can we know enough about what ISDs are doing so that we can be in alignment with it, and how can they know about what we're doing so that that outreach goes in both directions. But for us, it's critically important in those communities. We still have 75% of our students are local. That's been reducing slowly over time as we become more of a destination campus. But if those students in the surrounding ISDs are not college ready, then we will not grow the way that we need to grow to support the education and workforce needs of the community. So we do a lot, and traditional efforts, I think, reach back to high schools, maybe junior year, but we are going all the way to elementary school and have really meaningful connections within the school districts so that we can bring students to campus. We have a lot of people in our community that have never set foot on a college campus, and we want them to know and feel that it is their place as much as it is ours. So we host some big community events. We have a fiesta event, Festival de Cascarones, which is always on the last day, and then our holiday lighting, Lights of Esperanza. And we have thousands of people who are not affiliates of the university that come to those events, and we're really deliberate in that so that we can bring people in, have them feel comfortable, have them understand that this is a place for you, this is a possibility for you. And I think with VIDA, the connection really is that there will be more and more residents and more population, particularly in Southwest ISD, in that school district, for us to work with.
You bring up a point that that's very important. Dr. Ray Keck, the former president of Texas A&M International University, used to always say, Eddie, if you can help me get a kid on my campus, I will sell them on coming here. But I just need help getting them on the campus.
Yeah, I'll share a story. So we have many students who are transportation insecure. A lot of students who are dropped off on campus every day. Their family may have only one vehicle. And one of our students shared a story with me. They were, pardon me, they were waiting for their parent to pick them up on campus. And they were texting back and forth, and the parent said, well, I have to use the restroom, so I won't be there, right when I told you that I would. And when they finally, met up, the parent had left campus to use the restroom because she didn't know whether it was okay for her to do that. These are public buildings and a public university, but we have so many families, not just the students, but their families who have not ever been on a college campus. So that's what we're combating, and that's what we're really deliberate in trying to address by having elementary school students on our campus, middle school students. We go into those school districts. We do a Classroom of the Month award every month in the Aspire districts. It's the visibility. That's the first step to students really thinking that university is a thing that's available to them.
Thad, when you have situations like these, that then creates a workforce pipeline that can be challenged. So part of that ecosystem that you mentioned earlier is a workforce pipeline, and that adds to the ability for people to work and to live in that area. I think you mentioned earlier, rising tide lifts all boats, and so you want to be able to create a system where people can afford the homes that you're building there. Mm-hmm. So how do you help that workforce pipeline, especially with partners like A&M San Antonio?
Yeah, we do a lot of things, and it's all creative, right? It's always kind of ideation. What works now may not work in a year. I think affordability is one of the things that we have to. It may sound trite. Everyone talks about affordable housing, but what we're trying to do is.
Well, let me interrupt you. Sure. Because I've had a developer say it's not affordable housing. Affordable housing, that phrase tends to go to low-income housing.
Sure.
He likes talking about housing affordability, which is difficulty affording a house at any level, sure, at any income level.
We call it attainability sometimes, housing attainability. All of it matters. And if we're doing our job right, we are creating an ecosystem that does feed into that workforce challenge or opportunities. That if we're creating spaces that are healthy, connected, easy to get to places, has transit-oriented philosophies, that all those things plus that attainability is going to help with getting people closer to the campus or seeing some of those opportunities. We're always talking to other employers too as well. JCB is right down the street. Toyota's right down the street. We have a great employer base. The UHS is going to have well over 1,000 people that are going to work at our doorstep. We have to understand what they need. So the conversations we're having with the CEO of UHS, what type of housing do you need? We say the same thing. Jessica and I talk about this all the time. Dr. Ochoa, like what is the university needing that we can provide? And it's a unique partnership because we are not, I think we are linked day to day, but officially they're an organization, we're an organization. So we have conversations of how we can help each other all the time. That's what we call our partnership. Yeah. And I think those things are important, understanding their needs change from year to year. And so for us as a developer, we certainly also have our own, our financial kind of goals ourselves to be successful, but we've kind of figured out we can do this, we can partner, we can help on some of these kind of regional issues to the city as a private developer. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. We don't know if we can solve everything, but we certainly are trying to do our part. And sometimes we have really good, tough conversations of, look, if you think about this for this area, or if you could create a different walkable pattern from this neighborhood over to UHS, all those things matter. Or what other businesses, Jessica talked about it earlier, we're not just rooftops in the 600 acres. We have a tremendous amount of commercial that's coming down the pike. Commercial's been very difficult. New build investment commercial in the Southside is still pretty difficult compared to, you see a lot of these manufacturers, these job creators, but those people need places to go to eat, to go to congregate, to hang out. We are bringing some of those things, some of the first new restaurants in town to our area. Brooks does a great job, but it took many years for Leo and Connie and the team to get what they've got. To get to where point. They are now, yeah. Exactly. So we talk a lot about that. We think we play a role, even if it's sometimes small, but we play a role in all these things as kind of a mixed use or a planned developer.
In fact, just last week, I was meeting with your amazing COO, and it was a conversation she initiated to just elicit from us what our future parking needs might be, which is a perennial challenge for universities. And, there are, with all of the good that has come with the development, there are some unforeseen challenges as well. So we have parking along they're called slip lane spots. I won't get too far into the weeds, but along Jaguar Parkway and University Way that because of the rapid development of the hospital complex and of VIDA, we have parking spots that are just going to not be available to us, and those are the most affordable options for our students. So Gretchen initiated a conversation about, well, let's not just solve your short-term problems, but how can we work together and have a mutually beneficial solution for the future? What do you need? What can we help you do? And that's really been, I think, that's a perfect example of the kind of neighbors that VIDA and SouthStar have been.
I'm reminded of a story when Mario Lozoya was at the Toyota plant. He went around and he donated 6 Tundras to 6 Southside high schools. And they were all delighted to receive the truck. And 6 months later, he made the rounds. And at least 5, if not all of the 6, that Tundra was still sitting in the parking lot, covered in dust. And so he went and said, "Hey, we donated this vehicle to you for your shop class. Why aren't you using it?" And they said, "Well, that thing's a computer on wheels. All we teach is Bondo fender repair." And so that's when he realized, okay, I have an institutional systemic problem here. We need to build a university inside the Tundra plant to teach the teachers. So, which I thought was very interesting. Are you running across those types of systemic issues? As you go to work with the schools?
I would say, for us, it's both working with the schools and the local employers. So on the side of the schools, I think often people want to help them solve problems that are not the primary problems that they have. And it's a complex system. It's a bureaucracy and it's a complex system, and there's a lot of nuance. So certainly we try to understand from our K through 12 partners what would really help you. And then try to meet those needs. And likewise with local employers, because people make a lot of assumptions about what they might want from a university. And as I mentioned earlier, we're uniquely positioned to be responsive. We're only 16 years old. We have fewer than 40 undergraduate programs, and a university at full maturity would have 100 or more undergraduate programs. Whether they should or not is a different question. So we have the opportunity to really be responsive to workforce needs. Now, our challenge in that is that we don't have a lot of STEM programs that would really help support what's going on in advanced manufacturing in our part of town. So we launched an unsuccessful effort to get some engineering and health science programs funded through the legislature in the most recent previous session. But we've really got to add those programs. They're expensive to start up and they're expensive to operate. But what we do have as an advantage is that when we do get to the point where we can add those, we can say to JCB or Toyota or any number of small businesses in town that have needs that are not being met in the workforce and say, how can we best design our programs to meet those needs? And that's not always the case. Universities are not necessarily known for their rapid adaptability, as is the case with any bureaucracy.
Sure.
But being so young presents so many challenges. But the upside of that is that we can evolve quickly, we can adapt, we can be responsive. But right now, we're limited because of the number of academic programs that we have or don't have.
We got to see that. We were lucky enough A&M was lucky. We were lucky enough to be invited into the room. We hosted the new chancellor, Chancellor Hager, and he sat there, and Toyota had a representative, the city, District 4, the new councilman was there, UHS, JCB. We had, just very powerful, influential stakeholders there talking to the new chancellor about just this responsiveness that A&M has had the last couple years, the growth, where we want to go. That's exciting. You hear a lot about other universities in town that are doing big things. I really think the ultimate potential of A&M San Antonio, I don't know if most people realize how large and influential and powerful that campus will be in the next 10 to 20 years. And in that room, I felt it. You felt these stakeholders around this table talking to the chancellor of one of the largest school systems in Texas, probably the largest. And he was just beaming on the potential for A&M San Antonio, what it could do for the city of San Antonio, and for him, just the whole overall A&M system. Was really exciting, and see some of those other stakeholders saying, okay, how can we, like you had said about Mario, how can we get involved? How can we help this? Because it's only going to help us.
We all need each other to succeed,
Yeah.
too. I think we have some mutual dependencies that have spurred some of this partnership. And our previous chancellor, Chancellor Sharp, always said that A&M San Antonio is intended to be the second largest in the system eventually. We're master planned, certainly. We have the room. We have 700 acres, and only just over 100 of those have been developed. So we have the capacity. And I really look at UTSA as a model that they have exactly 40 years on us. And what they've been able to do, I was there 20 years ago as a student, a non-traditional student, obviously. And it's a very different place now than it was just 20 years ago. But the things that have led it to where it is now were put in place then. They were being put in place 20 years ago or more. And I think that UTSA presents a great model for us in that not that long ago it was, as you said, a commuter school. And there's so much that it has driven on the north side. Even though the north side was already far more developed than the south side, it still was a huge driver in the immediate area. And we see A&M San Antonio as doing the same thing. And in fact, at only 16, we look at our the next largest student population in the A&M system is Tarleton, and they have just about double the students that we have, but they're over 100 years old. So if you compare that to us at 16, having around 8,000, I think the trajectory
pretty rapid
is
growth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I know I met John Sharp when he was a state senator from Victoria many moons ago, 40 some odd years ago, and he was always very passionate about the role that the university played in the community that it was serving in. And he would get excited. He'd work with those local communities. So I'm glad to see that Chancellor Hager has a similar passion and drive. So I think it will mean a lot. So just to kind of close it out, Thad, where are you in this capacity level of what you're building in Project VIDA, and where do you go from here?
Yeah, no, it's we're not quite halfway there.
Okay.
I'd say we're probably 40% the way our through our life cycle. So we still feel like we're in the beginning, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So we're laser focused on commercial growth. We think that there needs to be spaces, not just common spaces and public spaces, but also private commercial spaces, restaurants, places for people to congregate, coming and going, whether you work at Toyota or are going to school or work at A&M. So we're working on a bunch of those projects right now that'll come to fruition in 2026 and 27. We have some new housing product that we're working on in concept to roll out over the next 3 or 4 years. We continue to want to be a leader, a partner with the rest of the great stakeholders. So we're always looking at other ideas for uses. We've got some really strategic space right at the intersection of University and Jaguar. We call it our town center because it's really at the heart of where our project starts and stops, and then A&M starts.
Yeah.
And so really looking at that, can we produce some student housing to help the university? Could we produce some mixed use buildings where it has commercial and residential? All of those things are on the table. Very exciting. Continue to do open space design as well. The Madla Greenway will be extended. We're very excited about that. So this is what we do. We love it. It's our life. Creating community is very important to us. We're not a developer that kind of does what we do and then gets out. We're in these projects much longer than an average developer. We make friends with the people that live in our neighborhoods. There's not many people that can say they're friends with their developer, but I have people that I talk to this day that worked on projects, decades ago. So, and just watching A&M grow, watching UHS grow in kind of this A&M regional center areas, we're proud to be a part of that. So those are the type of communities and projects that we like to work on, and hopefully we'll finish stronger than even we started.
And if people want to learn more about Project VIDA, where do they go? Website?
Yeah, it would be that's livevida.com.
Okay, perfect. Thad Rutherford, Jessica Loudermilk, thanks for joining us today, and look forward to staying on top of all the things, all the great things that you're doing for this community.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.